contacts you oh, whoops.
Sorry, I paused it before I jumped in. I didn't want to have like dead silence, but we're good to go.
Oh, thanks. No, I appreciate that. And I didn't even catch it. So if you could add to your chat, how many contacts did you make? How many phone calls? How many notes did you do? Did you do any pop buys? And how many adds to the database you had? Okay. We'll do that. I'll keep track of that. And right now, it looks like, John, we're probably going to have people show up as the class goes on. So we'll have to keep an eye on the participation. Or you will have to keep an eye on the participants.
Sounds good.
But I do want to introduce you. How long have you been in the business?
I've been in the business for about 5 years now.
Okay. Do you remember what it was like when you first got started?
Scary, intimidating, have no clue what I'm doing, and freaking out every day. So, you know.
How many people can relate?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's still days where it's like that. So, you know, it goes away a little bit, but, you know, it gets to a point where you get a little bit more comfortable with it.
I think that's a great explanation for it. I think that's, you know, we all fear the unknown, and every day is different in real estate.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we'll go from there. So John's been in the business. What made you get it? What made you get into the business?
Honestly, it was on a limb. It was about a year and a half after I graduated high school, took some time to kind of, you know, do my own thing. And then my mom gave me an ultimatum. She's like, you know, you become into the Air Force or you become a real estate agent. And, you know, she told me real estate agents make a ton of money. They have a great living. You know, they live in Bahamas. You know, they do all these great things. I'm like, well, that sounds amazing. Let's do that. I was like, I don't really want to be in the Air Force, so let's do this. And I've learned, you know, I'm not Bahamas yet, but you know, that's a nice goal to have. So we're working towards that.
There's a lot of nice places other than the Bahamas too.
Absolutely.
100%. So I know we've had a couple more that have just joined. If you guys could just leave your contacts made or into the chat room, we're going to let John get started on his class. Today is Negotiate the Deal. Anyway, he's with Eugene in Springfield. He's had an interest, and actually he's in business based on the fact that his mom gave him an ultimatum. So that's a good thing, but it's working out well. What is it you particularly enjoy about real estate?
You know, when I first started, it was definitely about the money. And as I've gotten to do it over the last 5 years now, you know, the money is still great. Like, don't get me wrong by any means. And I've learned that it's more important about, you know, what we can do every day to help people with their needs. And so, you know, when you get to the closing table to help a client, you know, close on that home, whether it's the buy or sell, you know, they're super ecstatic, super excited. And so that feeling is amazing for me. And so it's just, I really learned over these last couple of years that, you know, serving people and helping others is what's important to me at the end of the day. And just finding more and more people that I can help with my services, you know, to get them through that process, because it is a very stressful process for them. And it's a big financial decision for them to buy a home or sell a home.
Awesome. Anyway, so great news. Actually works on his database. How important is your database?
Database is everything. I send out a weekly email to them every Wednesday, and whether they open it or not, they know that I'm there for them whenever the time comes, when the time is right for them to do something. And I'm always available for questions too, even if they're not looking to buy or sell right now.
Okay. What's your biggest objection in the market that you have right now?
You know, I would say that the biggest objection is if they sell their house, they don't know where they're gonna go to buy a home. And you know, I've gotten to the point where those clients, they want to sell, but there's nothing really motivating to make that move right away. And so those are still sellers for, you know, potentially today, but those are also sellers for the future. And so my ultimate goal is it's not really an objection anymore as much as it is that's not their objective. And so my objective is just to find more people who are looking to buy or sell right now, and then just continue to build that database for the future. Because whether that person sells right now, you know, great, but if they don't, that's still someone down the road that I can help, you know, 3, 6 months, 2 years, you know, 5 years down the road.
Perfect. Perfect. Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, without further ado, to take on Negotiate the Deal, John, what is it? McKilligan?
McGilligan.
McGilligan.
Kind of like Gilligan's Island.
Gilligan's Island. There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Love it. So
how do you guys normally do this? Do you have me share the screen for the negotiating deal, or do you guys have it in front of you, or what does that look like?
So usually you can share the screen.
Okay.
You know, if you've got other things, because we're all, you know, the one thing about real estate is there's not any one way to do this business. But you've got the instructor's manual. You can follow that. I like to bring in my own personal experiences as well, especially when you negotiate the deal, and what are the strengths of that, and what that looks like. So ultimately, yeah, you can share screen. You have the hosting capabilities.
Okay. Let's see here.
Check that out. There you go.
Okay.
So skip through the 10-4s and the lead generate. We're going to just dive right into the class.
Okay. So for this, it talks about, you know, the 3 Ps: prepare, present, and position. You know, what I'll do is I'll share more of my personal experiences, and then I'd love to have you guys, you know, chime in and ask questions, and let me know too, like what you've been experiencing so far as negotiations, and then we can kind of just work, you know, in real time as to know how I can help you. So, you know, one of the biggest things, you know, I've seen even when I first started as a new agent is, you know, there's a whole lot for you to learn in negotiations, because, you know, you don't have a whole lot of experience yet. But then the other thing too is to not necessarily worry about that too much. It's just kind of like trying to really figure out, you know, what the right things are to say, and then just, you know, continuing to implement those. You know, I didn't have my first deal for about 6 months into the business. And so there's a lot of time where I was just learning how to write a contract, how to use MLS, and how to do a lot of those things. And, you know, that may not feel that great because it's, you're like, well, you know, I'm not making money. But in order to, you know, make money, you have to know how to write the contract, you have to know how to work MLS. And so that right there is worth $1 million. And so, you know, there's going to be a time gap between when you get your first deal and when you're, you know, doing all the work. And so, you know, that's just something in the back of your mind to remember, is that, you know, learning how to write the contract, you know, reading the contract, being able to communicate that to your clients is important, even though you're not making money right now. And then that really becomes down to how you can negotiate better for them because they feel more comfortable with you, you know, through the process. And at the end of the day, you know, we're not going to have deals if clients don't feel comfortable with us. So that's truly the beginning part of, you know, even negotiating with just them, to let them know that you're there for them and that you're going to make them feel comfortable through the process, and that we're here to, you know, mitigate the stress as much as possible. And so that's where, you know, preparing comes into play. Being present with them is listening to what their needs are and just figuring out, you know, how we can help them. So I'd love to hear from you guys, kind of like what you're seeing right now in the negotiations, or anything that you have questions about on that. Anything?
I think everything that I start with, it starts with telling the story, especially if we're representing the buyers.
Mhm.
What's the story? What is
Tell me,
the house?
tell me more about that.
Well, there's technology, right? So with technology, every house has a different story. Buyers are more in tune to what's going on in the market than they've ever been.
Hmm.
And no matter what, no matter if there's 9.9 months of inventory or 1.2 months of inventory or 6 months of inventory, I think people have 2 weeks to sell their house at list price or above.
That is very true.
And if
And
you
I
can,
think,
and if you can tell that story, and the more you can tell that story to not only your buyers, but when you get in front of listings and you tell that story, then it becomes that much more of a you'll convert more listings and buyers.
I think that is very true. And that actually ties into positioning where, everyone, people already know when they're going to buy and when they're going to sell. And so, I never feel like I have to pressure them into doing anything. At the end of the day, it's, once they tell me that they're ready to sell, it's just a matter of figuring out when I can create a game plan with them that's going to work best for them. An example that I can give you is over the weekend, I had a client who I helped them buy their house 2 years ago, and now they're thinking about selling. And I said, well, what's got you guys thinking about selling? And he said, well, we just had a new kiddo during COVID, and we've been kind of missing our family back in Minnesota, and so we've tossed around the idea of maybe selling this house and buying a house over there. I said, okay, when are you guys wanting to get back to Minnesota? And he's like, well, the wife wants to get back, sometime next year, but I'm thinking, sometime in, by November of this year. And I said, okay, well, what we can do is, in order to make that happen for you, is we can set up a game plan to get the home on the market sometime late August, early September. And then that way it'll give you time from when we get an accepted offer to closing, that you'll be in Minnesota sometime late October, early November. I said, does that sound good to you? And he's like, that actually works perfectly for us, because we're actually thinking about making a trip out to Minnesota in the middle of September. And so that'll even work for us to, be gone for that entire week and allow you to just show the property without having to set up appointments. And so at that point, it's like, 2 years ago, they bought the home as their first time as a first home. And now we're working as a team to figure out how we're going to get the home on the market in a couple of weeks, versus me just, saying, this and this and this. And we're working more as a team and using my expertise to, move the path forward and letting them know what the plan is going to be. And so we're positioning them to be very strong in the market and, make it work for what they're looking to do.
Can I ask a question? Do you
Absolutely.
worry about timing, like, trying to get it on like right now before school starts or anything like that?
Nope. I'm not concerned about that. What concerns me is how fast or how slow they want to sell. So if they're concerned of, selling right now because they think the market's going to turn, whether I believe that's true or not, that's their concern. So I'm going to say, well, let's get the home on the market immediately. If they're not concerned about the market taking a turn, and selling when it's right for them, then, by all means, that's totally fine. If they've missed the opportunity because of that, I will still give them my opinion and say, look, I think the market's going to turn, and they can use that information if they want to, or they don't have to. At the end of the day, it's their choice if they want to sell. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sounds like you inform them though. So that's
Exactly.
helpful.
Yep. A great example I can give is, 2 years ago, I had a client who wanted to buy their first home, and I said, I think it's a great idea for you guys to buy a house right now. I know it's not perfect for what you're looking for, but it hits most of the boxes, and I think we should make a move. Otherwise the market's going to continue to go up, and who knows what can happen. And he's like, well, we just kind of want to wait it out, save up some more money, and then also kind of see if the market goes down. And I said, you can do that, by all means. And at this point, they still haven't bought a house, and now they're priced out of the market because home prices have gone up so much. I gave them my advice that they should buy right now, and they would have been a lot better off if they did. However, at the end of the day, it's not my decision, it's their decision on if they want to buy a house. And so we can, I try to communicate with them as best as I could that, this is what we should do. And, we don't have control over what people do at the end of the day. And I don't want that control. I want to just help people who need my help, today, tomorrow, or, whenever that time may be.
Give them the most amount of knowledge so they can make the best decision for their family.
Absolutely. Yep. Not everyone's going to take your advice, which, can be frustrating, but, at the end of the day, that's all we can do.
At the end of the day, it will still be your fault.
We as agents get blamed for a lot, don't we?
Yes, we do.
So nonverbal cues, I mean, this is something I don't know if I can really communicate. This is more just something you can pick up from people is, when they walk into the home, you can kind of tell right away from the way they walk in or their mannerisms or the way they communicate that they're not really interested in the house. And so you don't have to push it at all or anything like that. And so Ismail asked to talk more about the 3 Ps. And so for that, I think it's more, once you know that they like the house, at that point, you can kind of highlight more about, the benefits of it, the location, everything, still do that. But you can definitely tell when someone's ready to, make an offer on a house, or, when they're really interested to move things forward. Ismail, is there anything in particular that you want to learn about the 3 Ps?
As far as prepare goes.
Prepare?
What are things you do to prepare?
And present. Yeah, present. Yeah. He spoke a little bit about prepare, like getting familiar with the MLS, getting ready with the forms,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I got that part. But and then the present in position. If you can explain a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So present is more, once they're ready to make the deal happen, you communicate with them, what are they looking to do as far as, purchase price on the house, also communicating with them, what the market looks like as far as, what it takes to get a home. So, the example would be, is I have a client who made an offer on a property last week, and, they were asking me, so if there's multiple offers, what are some of the things that we have to do to, be competitive right now? And so one of the things we talked about was the escalation clause. I told them on most given properties right now, we're seeing anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000 over asking. There's times where we may even have to give the sellers a 30-day rent back for free after closing. And then one of the things that we're seeing a lot right now is that buyers are waiving the inspection period, as well as potentially doing a gap for the appraisal difference. And so presenting is more just the information that you learn over time and sharing it with them, and then figuring out what they feel comfortable doing. And so, those particular clients, they felt comfortable waiving the inspection period, because I told them, I was like, if we don't waive the inspection period and other people are willing to do that, our offer doesn't look as strong as the other offers that are willing to do that. As well as the escalation clause goes, that's a safety net for us to, go above the asking price, but not necessarily offer way over what any other offer is willing to. And typically what I do with my escalation clauses is $2,500 over any competing offer up to whatever cap they want to do. And in that way, it shows that, there's a significant amount of money difference for the sellers to take into consideration our offer. And so you're just presenting that information to the client. And then once you get into the contract, you can communicate with the listing agent to let them know, like, you know, here's our terms, here's our deals. Because that's not the only thing too, is when you're not only communicating that to your clients, you're also communicating that to listing agent. And so you can find out details like, because the listing agent can't tell you what the other offers are, but you can tell them, hey, you know, we've got an offer up to 360. Is this competitive? And if the agent is willing to share, they can say yes, you know, you're in the top 5 or you're in the top 3. And then at that point, you can, you know, communicate with your clients more and be like, you know, this is what we have. This is what the agent has told me. Do you want to go higher? Do you want to continue with our offer currently and just, you know, see what happens? And so you just lay it all out flat, you know, the information out to them, be as honest as you can, and also let them know that, you know, you're there, you know, for their best interests. And I've had clients where they're like, you know, I don't want to spend $400,000 on this house. I don't think it's worth it. And I say, you know, I hear you. You know, it looks like that's what's going to happen with this particular home. And so if you don't feel comfortable going up to 400,000, we don't have to, but it looks like that's what we're going to have to do to get this house. And so, you know, if you don't want to do it, we don't need to do it. And then we can just keep looking for another home. Does that kind of make sense for the present part? I'd also love to know any more about what you're looking for too.
I have a question about the inspection. You said waive the inspection period.
Mm-hmm.
You're not saying waive the inspection.
No. So that's one thing that I communicate with my clients too, is when we waive the inspection period, we still have the opportunity to do an inspection. It just means that we can't negotiate with the sellers for any repairs or anything like that, you know, because we don't have that inspection period. So if my clients still want to do an inspection, which I always highly recommend, we can do that. It's just we won't have the opportunity to negotiate with the sellers when it comes to, you know, doing repairs.
But they can still back out from the deal too, right?
Correct.
It's just that they waive in the negotiation with the seller.
Exactly.
Okay. That's a question I got it too. I'm glad that someone else did it. Yeah.
Perfect. And then, you know, position, you know, there, honestly, for me personally, there's not a lot that I can share with it. So, you know, I'd love to know what you have to say, Matt. The way I see positioning is just being in front of as many property owners and buyers as I possibly can, because, you know, the more people you're in front of, the more opportunities that you're going to be able to help people. And then at the end of the day too, that's going to make your negotiation skills a lot stronger anyways, because you're going to be failing forward and making mistakes along the way. And, you know, you obviously, it's not going to be like big mistakes where it's like you're costing clients like thousands of dollars. It's more just, you know, saying the wrong things and improving what you're saying and being able to, you know, get better and better at the end of the day. That way your clients, you know that you're working hard for them and, you know, doing everything you can to be in the best position possible to be the best agent for them, you know, during their time of need.
I got a question.
Yes.
That waiving the negotiation period and then still being able to back out. I'm not clear in my head how that works.
Clarify more. Tell me more about that.
Well, let's say if I've got an inspection period, I have to negotiate any kind of repairs within that window or back out. If I have the home inspection and I've waived the inspection period, I'm not seeing a time period where I can back out.
Right. And that's the thing is, you know, the buyers still have the option to terminate when, you know, whenever they want, like that's their given right. And you know, the sellers could try and, you know, fight the buyers for their earnest money. But I mean, I've never had a seller do that, and I've never had a client lose their earnest money. And so, you know, at the end of the day, it's you know, does the seller want to try and fight the earnest money and hold up the sale of their home, or do they want to, you know, give the buyers the earnest money back and then, you know, find a new buyer who's not going to waste their time?
Okay, but I mean, that's not in the contract then. I mean, if you've waived the negotiation period, you're just relying on fate, not anything written.
Pretty much. Yeah.
As a
Ooh.
buyer, you will still get the option. You still have the option to move forward or back out. There's just going to be no negotiating with it,
Exactly.
right? I would more put it in the terms of there's many ways you can handle it. As far as that goes, as far as the inspection period goes, there's certain people that maybe put in, hey, buyers to not ask for anything under $2,000, $1,500 or $5,000 that doesn't deal with the health and safety and of the home, right? Or the buyers. There's ways that you can counteract waiving the whole inspection period. And I think it's important to understand both. If you say that you're going to buy the house as is, what does as is mean in this market right now?
What you see is what you get when you walk through the front door and wrote the contract.
It's exactly right. But if your buyers still have the inspection, they can still decide to move forward or walk away from it if it's worth that price to them.
Yeah, with my understanding with the way it's written in the contract, that if you decide you don't want any repairs done and the inspection period runs out, but then you decide, oh, I don't like this place, you've gone past the inspection period, you can't back out due to a home inspection.
No, you can't.
Come up with a different reason,
Right.
like disclosures or preliminary or final walkthrough, plenty other get out of free jail cards, but you're screwed on the home inspection.
Right.
I think, and I hear what you're saying. I definitely agree with you, Scott. I think the thing is, there's been plenty of deals that I've been through where buyers have just backed out because they got cold feet. And, that happens too, where it's like they had no reason or ability to back out, but they still were able to do it anyways. And at that point, it's up to the sellers to decide, is it worth trying to fight the buyers for their earnest money? They had no reason to back out. They had no rights in the contract to back out. And it's like, is it worth the $3,000 to fight them for the earnest money and hold up their home through that negotiations? Or is it better to just give the buyers back their money, even though it lost them time, and to find a new buyer who's not going to waste their time even more and just, keep moving the process along? Because there's been times where I've seen buyers who have backed out a week prior to closing, and they were past all of their inspection periods, their appraisal periods, everything was a green light, but they got cold feet. There was no reason for them to back out except for that, and they just decided they didn't want to do it anymore, and the sellers had to bite the bullet, and it was frustrating by all means, but they found a new buyer to purchase the home, and they were moving along, immediately afterwards. And so, yes, it's probably not the best thing to do, but ultimately, if the client doesn't feel comfortable when they've waived that inspection period, but found something through the inspection, they don't feel comfortable with it. And I'm not going to keep them in the deal. At the end of the day, if the client doesn't feel comfortable and they can't do anything about it, then we'll just find them something else.
Now, are you saying that the advantage in negotiation comes from not having that 10-day inspection period, or from not having negotiations after the inspection, or both?
So when you waive the inspection period, you basically tell the seller, we're buying the home as is. We're not going to ask for any repairs. We're not going to ask for any negotiating of any type. If there's lender required repairs, then that makes sense to where it's going to be needed to be done to move things forward. If you have a 10-day inspection period and another offer doesn't, and that other offer is waiving the inspection period, which offer would you choose? One that has the opportunity to negotiate with you, or an offer that, has no opportunity to negotiate with you?
Okay. But it's the negotiation part that is the problem, or it's the 10-day period, I guess. That was kind of what I'm wondering.
It's more the negotiation
Okay.
of it.
Now, because we bought a house recently in Mara, she helped to negotiate the deal for us, and with additional provisions, what she wrote in, buyers will only address major safety or structural repairs during inspection period, but it was still a 10-day inspection period. That was
Yeah.
just throw that out there, I guess.
You can definitely do that too. It all depends on how you want to word it, and that's where the comes into play too, where it's like it all depends on how strong your offer is compared to the other ones. Because if you say that and someone's completely waiving the inspection period, it's up to the seller at that point to decide, is your offer that has only structural and big major concerns, equal or better than the other offer who's waiving it. And so, I think that's a great way to do it too, because then you at least still protect your clients in that sense where they can negotiate that. And that also kind of determines too, like what you see from the house, if there's any foundation issues, anything that you should be concerned about, to definitely put that in there.
Okay. Thanks.
What's the biggest problem right now with negotiations?
I mean, to put it lightly, buyers kind of just have to do what the sellers ask. I mean, there are
Leverage.
still, say what?
No leverage.
Exactly.
If
Yeah.
you've got backup offers there, buyers have no leverage.
Yeah. And so as far as negotiation goes, it really comes down to talking with the listing agent to see if there's anything important to the sellers, if they need rent back, if they need a certain amount of time to move out of the property, or is it just price at the end of the day that's the most important thing to them? Do they have another property that they're looking to purchase? There's a lot of different things, but right now buyers don't have a whole lot of leverage. And so the more that the client feels comfortable, giving to the sellers to get the home and not have to compete with the other 5 other offers on any property that they're purchasing, it depends up to them on what they feel comfortable doing. Because that's truly the thing right now. I mean, that offer that we made last week, when I talked to the agent, she said they had 5 other offers on the property. Some of them are willing to waive the inspection period, not asking for anything moving forward. And there was offers that I'm sure were $40,000 to $50,000 over asking, and we offered $30,000 over asking, waiving inspection period, closing in 30 days. And then because the property was vacant, we didn't have to do any type of rent back situations, but my clients were comfortable doing that too. And so it's just, figuring out how strong we can make our offer to be able to get our foot in the door, to be able to negotiate with the sellers in the first place. Does that kind of answer your question, Matt?
Yeah.
I like this. I really like you guys chiming in. So is there any more questions on that, as far as negotiating goes and how to get, work best for our clients?
I have a question, John.
Hi, Jake.
How far do you go with a client that gets cold feet? I mean, okay, they get it one time. You're like, okay, it happens. I understand. This is a huge decision. But there comes a point where if they continue on that kind of a path, do you have that happening? And let me just, I know I came in late because of traffic issues, so I missed the intro, but I was at a men's breakfast and I thought, great opportunity to get in front of people and just say, hey, this is what I've been doing for the past X months. I hadn't seen these guys in quite a while. And 2 of them already owned their houses. And one of them that owned the houses had a card for me already. And after visiting and talking to a little real estate, I said, hey, I've got some cards. I'd be more than happy to hand them out if you ever have any questions. And what stunned me about that was that everybody was frozen. They didn't want to do anything, even take a card. And I'm wondering if people are a little bit fearful. They maybe just want to sit where they are. They don't even want to think any more than whether or not they're observing Oregon protocols. And the last thing I want to think about right now is if I'm safe in a house, that's their haven. it really threw me for a loop, you guys. And these are generally pretty decent fellows, and I hadn't seen in a while. And so my question to you, I know that's a little long-winded there. How many opportunities do you give a potential client when you start to, if you're starting to wonder if you're going up the wrong tree,
But
wasting your time, your resources, your gas, your time?
I know.
I think that's a great question. I kind of want to break that down a little bit because I feel like I understood a little bit what you're saying, but I feel like it went to a two-part. So with the client who is, you know, is getting cold feet on you multiple times, is that in relation to the guys that you were handing your business card to, or is that kind of a separate situation?
I guess I got a little bit. I guess I got a little bit carried away there. It really is almost twofold. I guess the better question is the first part. You know, how many strikes do you get before you sit there and say to yourself, okay, especially with as competitive as it is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great question. Did I hear someone want to chime in really quick on that?
I did. I don't think it just means they're not ready right now, but it doesn't mean you don't build the relationship and cultivate that relationship with them. There's the only time somebody can tell you, or you can tell somebody when they're ready to sell their house is when they're ready. The best time to sell, it doesn't matter if it's, you know, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. The time to sell their house is when they're ready. And they will have the circumstances to where all you want to do is to know that you're there, be on top of their mind, be in front of them, and have that conversation or have those conversations that eventually over time, especially being new, there's some that are going to pull back. It took me 3 years to get something from my sphere.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So my main lead generation source was through open houses. Right. But once I started proving myself, it wasn't until then that one of my family members actually gave me a referral.
Okay.
Once I worked with that referral, it spread like wildfire.
Okay.
Right. It may be that you have to prove yourselves in other facets. So necessarily it's just having conversations and checking in and letting people know you're in the business, but having another source of lead generation. Always have 2 or 3 sources of lead generation, whether maybe it's a home buyer seminar, right? That's a great way to it's just like doing an open house, and it's people who are interested in buying that don't know where to start. Get with a lender, right? All of these things, that's just lead generation.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that too. So what I talked about in the beginning, Jake, was I didn't get my first deal for 6 months. You know, I thought I was doing all the right activities, and you know, making everything happen. You know, and during that time, I just didn't realize it at the time, where I was learning MLS. I was learning how to read the contract, and then that way, when the opportunity came to do deals, you know, I was more prepared. You know, it's still one of those things where it's going to, you know, take some action to be able to get through that and feel more comfortable with it. And what I would say as far as a client who's getting cold feet on you is kind of think of yourself as a volunteer. You know, you're doing this for free until you get paid. And so I truly believe that, you know, clients can waste my time all they want. And at the end of the day, the more time that I waste on people, the more business that I'm going to do.
Okay.
And so I think the key thing is that if a person is getting cold feet on multiple different properties, it's not necessarily that I want to fire them at that particular moment. I want to figure out why that is. Like what in particular is it? You know, is the reasons valid? Is it something else? Is there something going on that I don't understand? And if the client at that point, you know, isn't taking my advice and I just have, like, I don't have enough time to work through all of that with them, you know, at that point you can decide, all right, I don't have enough, you know, time. There's a lot of other clients that I'm servicing right now that, you know, I want to work with you, but unfortunately, I just can't, and I just don't have the time and I don't have the resources to help you, you know, through this process. And so I think it's better that I connect you with another agent who has more time to work with you.
The other thing is very important as you start this and you get in front of people, follow it up with a personal note. Get those apps where you can get their addresses and whatnot and personalize it. Hey, it was great to have lunch with you. Love doing it. No, you're not thinking about real estate now, but if you know somebody who's looking to buy, sell, or invest, please send them my way.
Mhm.
Right? I'm looking forward to being your trusted real estate resource.
Exactly. Yep. Ismail just asked a question. He said, so what I said was, the more time I waste on people is the more opportunities it gives me to do more business is the way that I look at it. Because the more time that I spend communicating with property owners, you know, if you think about it, you basically wasting your time trying to find more business. And building relationships with people, and that relationship, whether it turns into something, you know, now 2 years or 3 years, 5 years from now, that really doesn't matter to me. The biggest thing is just letting them know that I care about them, that I'm here for them when they need my help, and how can I help them during that time. You know, a great example would be is I have a listing under contract right now. I hadn't talked to the sellers for 2 years. He called me up and he said, hey, you know, we're thinking about selling our house. And I said, okay, you know, what's got you guys thinking about selling your house? And I think that's the key thing is treat your clients like an extended family member, or like friends that you are genuinely care about. Because if an old lady calls you and she's like, you know, I'm thinking about selling my house, you don't immediately go to, okay, well, let's get your home on the market. I would treat her like she's my grandmother and say, okay, grandma, you know, why are you thinking about selling your house? You know, what's got you thinking about selling your house? You know, what has made you think about this to consider doing this? And, you know, that has helped me kind of shift my mindset a lot. Is how would I talk to my mom, and how would I talk to my grandmother? How would I talk to my brother? How would I talk to a little brother? How would I talk to a little sister, to help them through this process and show them that I truly care? And, you know, there's kind of this thing that a lot of people say for making cold calls and stuff is never ask the client, you know, how are you doing? And it's like, well, I'd ask my mom how she's doing, you know, what's going on in her world. And so for me personally, I think that's something that I do for my calls. If you don't want to do it, that's totally fine. But I just treat people like they're an extended family member, and what can I do for you and how can I help you? Because I don't care what I can't do for you. It just means that I need to go find people who can help me or help them. And so it's just like, what can I do to help you?
John.
Yeah.
I wanted to say something about wasting time on people. I do about 10 years, and I'll tell you what, I wasted a lot of time talking to folks, but going out and cold calling and door knocking and stuff, I haven't found but maybe 1 or 2 buyers or sellers out there. But that wasting time, people have called me, they knew I was in the business and they knew somebody, and they've always found me from wasting time.
Absolutely. And that's the key thing is the more relationships that you build in the community, the more opportunities that you'll be given. You know, there's a guy that I listen to, his name is Ricky Caruth. He provides completely free coaching. You can listen to him if you want, or you don't have to. The reason why I bring it up is because he said that, you know, there's some people who make 1,000 phone calls to people and they get 1 or 2 deals. And then there's some people who have to make 14,000 calls to get their first deal. But he said that along the way, during that process of them making those calls, you know, they were building relationships, connecting with people, you know, staying in front of them to the point where, you know, that 6 months that it took them to get that first deal, because they've done all of this preparing and going through the process of connecting with as many property owners as they possibly can, is that at a certain point, you're going to have people who are calling you back in a year, 2 years from now and saying, hey, you know, I'm thinking about selling my house now. Can you help me? And that's exactly what we just said, Scott. I think that's perfect.
Could you spell his name for us, please?
Ricky Caruth, Ricky Caruth, Carruth. He coaches completely for free. He gives all the information that he knows in his podcast, YouTube videos, Instagram. I heavily watch him, and he's helped me shift my mindset to, just the more time that you waste on people, the more that people will give back to you, essentially. Do you guys have any more questions on that? Let me see.
Yeah, actually, I had a question on the prepare aspect of it. What is the etiquette or kind of the expectations when finding out, like if you have a buyer and they're interested in a certain property, and finding out from the listing agent kind of what offers they have on the table? Is it okay to straight up ask and see how many or what kind of offers, or what does my buyer need to do to get this house?
I think that's a great thing to do. Having a conversation with listing agent is super important, because that'll allow you to, and it obviously comes to discretion of the listing agent what they're willing to share. When I talked with the listing agent, last week, I asked her, how many offers she has. She said she has 5 offers. She couldn't tell me, what the prices were. And so I just had to kind of take an idea and guess from how many offers they have and how competitive it's going to be to how high we need to go. But you can definitely ask, any questions you want. And so it's just a matter of what they're willing to share with you. They won't be able to tell you price. She was willing to tell me that there was some offers that were waiving the inspection period. In this particular situation, it was an estate, so there was nothing really important to the sellers outside of price. But you can ask if, there's anything particular to your client to their clients, such as, do they need time to sell this house and stay in the property after closing in order to move into their next property? Are they staying local, or are they moving out of state? So they're going to need more time then. And so it just kind of depends on, yes, you can do that. And it just depends on, what the situation may be.
Can I add something, Julio?
Absolutely.
One of the things that I would also tell you is, sorry, good timing on that. One of the things that I would say, if somebody's not willing to offer price, and they say they're not willing to talk about price, I will then say, well, how many offers do you have in hand? Right? How many offers do you have in hand? And then if they won't talk about price, we've got some that are waiving. Great. Do you have any offers over 450? Hit a price point where you're thinking about, and then your clients, then you can do the best possible, dig deep, find those questions that we're not willing to discuss price, but yes or no is that, hey, I'm not willing to discuss price, but then I've had an agent do that to me and I thought it was brilliant. It caught me off guard and I said, no, we don't. Right? But it also got my clients above the threshold of that threshold, because my clients got it at that 451. I'm a big believer in thinking outside the box. Everybody writes in $5 to $10 to $15 to $20,000 over. Be the agents that think outside the box. Think 750, think 1200. Based on the information that you collect, think differently and outside the box. That way, that extra $100,000, that extra $100 may be the difference between your client getting it or competing with, 3 other offers. Make
Yeah,
sense?
for sure. That's really valuable information. Actually, when we were buying our house, our offer was only $300 over the other offer. We got it, $300.
That's exactly right. And I think that's the best thing that you can do is think outside the box. I had clients that they didn't go over and they competed with 3 others and they lost it. They also at that point lost their will to even look, because they wouldn't go the 326 that it would take. That extra $1,000 is how much in your monthly payment? For every $5,000 your mortgage goes up, it's roughly $25 to your mortgage payment. Break it down for them. How much is that going to be? That's an extra Starbucks coffee, right?
Yep.
I'm thinking that you have to get your clients to do their highest and best offer the first time they make the offer, because
Yep.
some of these sellers don't counter.
No, they won't. If they have multiple offers, they will not counter.
Okay.
And then your client's going to be looking at you like, oh, we just left money on the table. Don't leave money on the table. Okay. Sorry, John. Just wanted to jump in.
No, I appreciate that. No, it's very true. And it's that's why, like I tell clients all the time, it's, offer a price where you feel comfortable and you're not going to lose sleep over losing the house because you wish that you offered more.
And it comes down to the monthly budget, right? So if they're thinking, oh, yeah, it's an extra $5,000. Well, that's $25 a month on your monthly payment. Break it down, for every $50, it's $10,000. Break it down for them. Will that increase their desire? Most likely. Okay.
Yep. Any other
Anyway,
questions?
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna, do you guys have any other questions?
Yeah, I got a case of a client that is a buyer that he's basically trying to only offer about 10 to 15,000 over the asking price. And the reason why he's doing that only is because he said that if he offers more, the appraisal is gonna be short. If he offers like 40 grand over the asking price, he's concerning that the appraisal is gonna be short, and he's not gonna be able to get approval with the loan, and he's gonna be pretty much wasting money with the inspection and with the appraisal fee. So what's the best way to address this case?
I think that's a great question. There's a part in the contract that talks about, there's the financial agreement. And so if the appraisal does come in low, then at that point, the seller and buyer have to agree to either selling it at the appraised value or coming up with some type of agreement that works for both parties. And if both parties can't come to an agreement, then the contract will automatically terminate. And so, at that point, you can offer $40,000 over asking, but if it only appraises at $10,000 over asking, then you have to renegotiate with the sellers to make that work. There are some people who are putting in the contract that they're willing to pay a certain amount of difference between the appraised value and going over the appraised value. And that's something that you can share with them, is that, if you're worried about the appraisal, that contingency in the contract, which I believe is in the first or second page, it tells you, like right there, like the buyer and seller has to come to an agreement on the price if it comes in low. Otherwise, he can back out.
And the point that he's concerned is that if the seller doesn't want to renegotiate the price, he's concerned that he just wastes his money. He wastes his money with the inspection and with the appraisal, and he's gonna come up pretty much like with he's losing money because he already paid those services. It's not, and the sellers may not be able to incorporate renegotiation the deal.
And I definitely hear that. And we can communicate with him is the seller is just as like wants to sell the home just as much as he wants to buy it. And so the sellers are going to want to try and to come to some type of agreement to get it sold. Obviously they're not going to like the fact that they're going to take $40,000 less, or whatever the case may be. But the sellers are want to sell their home too as much as he wants to buy it.
Okay, I got that. All right, thank you, John.
Absolutely, yeah.
Another part to that.
Yes, Scott.
Matt's always talking about the secondary market. In every price range, there's homes that have been on the market for more than 2 or 3 weeks. Go after a home that's been on the market for a little bit, and you're probably not going to run into competing offers. That's all.
Yep, we see it. We don't see it a whole lot right now, but there are still homes that we see that have been sitting in the market for 3 weeks or more. And those are opportunities where a buyer can come in at asking price or potentially even lower and not have to worry about competing. One thing too that I think a lot about too is do everything you can to help your clients that are going through these struggles in the market, but then also spend a lot more time finding more clients that you can help, whether it's today or in the future. That's one thing that I've really had to let go is kind of the instant gratification and, just trusting the process that as long as I put in the work, whatever the results may be, at the end of the day, I'm not going to have to worry about those situations and those clients I'm going to be able to communicate with them a lot easier when I have other clients who, are making deals happen, because at the end of the day, a client's going to see that when you are so busy to the point where, you just tell them the information the way it is, that whether they may move forward or not, it doesn't matter to you. You're just there to help them. And so it's at the end of the day, it's their decision, and you're doing everything that you can to help them. You're not going to be able to help everybody, get a home or sell their home. And, quite frankly, I wouldn't have the time to. If I was doing every single deal in Lane County, I just would not have the time, and I wouldn't want to. I mean, I want to have a life. I want to be able to enjoy my weekends and spend time with my family. So it's like, do I want to do 2,000 deals in a year? Probably not. I couldn't even if I wanted to. So there's plenty of business out there for everybody. It's just a matter of continuing to help those people who are struggling through, appraisal concerns and everything, and communicating with them the best you can, and just continuing to find more and more clients who don't have those concerns, or who are ready to do something because there's motivation behind it.
Can I ask, if you had the right listing agent, if your appraisal came in and it was high, then if you had the right listing agent, wouldn't it, you could negotiate to a middle ground, but the listing agent the seller doesn't really want to lose that client, that buyer, because they're going to run into the same thing again and again, right? It's always going to appraise too high.
Exactly. Yep. So
they need to negotiate as a seller.
Yep. And that's why I said the seller wants to sell as much as the buyer wants to buy.
Okay.
And, that's the thing where if the seller doesn't have a stronger offer, then, there's no reason for them to back out. And if it was a stronger offer anyways, they would have just accepted that offer too. A good example I can share with you is I had a client who was selling their house in Cottage Grove, and we got an incredible offer of $351, and we listed it for $330. That may not seem high given the way that we've seen offers $60,000 over asking. But for this particular house, the buyers had $200,000 down, and the other two of our offers that we had were FHA buyers. And so I told them, I was like, this is the strongest offer that we have right now. And so, yes, the buyers are asking for repairs, but we can counter back and negotiate with them. I don't think we should just straight up terminate the deal because you're upset that the clients the buyers are asking for stuff. And so I really calmed them down through that process, and we got the deal done, and they were happy that we did. And it's just a matter of what you cross that bridge when you get there. You're not thinking, oh yeah, the appraisal is going to come in low. If it happens, then we'll cross that bridge when we get there. If repairs come up, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, and just prep your clients that if you feel like there's going to be concerns of the appraisal coming in low, have that conversation with them before you even accept the offer, or before the appraisal even happens, where it's like, we have an offer of $360, and based on the comps and everything that I've seen, there's a possibility the appraisal may come in low and we might hit $340. So you know, if the appraisal comes in at 360, that's amazing. You know, we're golden, but just be prepared that that the appraisal may come in at 340 and we're going to have to renegotiate on that price to the 340. Unless, of course, we were able to negotiate with the buyers to have them do an appraisal gap. But I always have that conversation up front with them where it's be prepared, you know, as to this happening. And if you have a great agent who is working with the sellers, you know, they should be doing the exact same thing, or at least letting the clients know and being able to work through the appraisal coming in low. And so you can also use that with your client too, is if you know the agent well enough and they have a good reputation in the industry, you can say, look, like I understand your concerns of the appraisal, and you know, I know this agent in the community. You know, if any appraisal issues do come up, I'm able to negotiate with them to where we can come to an agreement that works best for you and for the sellers. Awesome. I love this so far. Any other questions you guys have?
Yeah, John, I have a question. So let's say that I'm the agent, the listing agent, and we have had an offer that we've accepted. Now it's pending, and then their appraisal came back at lower than what we had listed, and then so they bow out and they walk away from the deal. Well, then for us to relist it, should we list it at the same price that we had it previously listed, or for lower, because we know that the appraisal came in lower?
So great question. So is that with a particular deal that happened recently?
No, it's not. I was just asking.
Okay.
Like if that would end up coming up and I have to deal with something like that.
Gotcha. I would say you'd want to price it at the new price. A lot of times that's probably going to be a price that's higher than the original list price anyways. I haven't really seen a whole lot of times where, you know, you have to come down on price because of the appraisal, unless of course the sellers were, you know, extremely high on the price and they just wanted to try it and then they somehow got an offer for that. But you know, buyers are so informed, you know, in today's market that if they feel like a home is overpriced, you know, unless there's a lot of activity on it that's pushing the price up because of multiple offers, the house is usually just going to sit there.
Okay.
And so you wouldn't have to worry about that.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Absolutely. One thing too, kind of like on topic, but not really, is I had that listing I have on Hampshire. I told the sellers, you know, we're going to be listing it in like right at 4th of July weekend. And so there's going to be a little bit of a slowdown during that time. And it happens almost every time for holidays, you know, Memorial Day, 4th of July. And so what I told them was, you know, just prepare. We're not going to probably receive an offer, you know, right away. I think the price that we have it at is great, so we don't have to be any concerned about that at all. And sure enough, after about a week of being on the market, we had, you know, a couple of showings, a little bit of activity, but then the next week after that 4th of July week that came up, we ended up receiving 2 offers at this, and one was $10,000 over the asking price, but we went with the other offer because that offer had a house to sell. And, you know, I would say that, you know, unless the sellers are like significantly higher than what you recommend, you can usually get a good feel if the appraisal is going to come low or not. And that also just comes with time too. But if you look at the comps and what's selling, and then also having a conversation with the agents for the houses that are currently pending and how high they went or how many offers they had, you can feel pretty comfortable knowing that, you know, you're not going to have to worry about appraisal issues. Any other questions you guys have on that? So Mike, or Matt talked about counter tactics, you know, as far as like figuring out things to think outside the box. Does anyone want to kind of talk more about that or go more in depth to anything like that?
Sure. Anything you have to say about it, really?
I would say, you know, kind of what we talked about in the past, you know, buyers don't have a whole lot of leverage. So, you know, just think things that you can do. What Matt said, that's probably the only thing that I know as far as that. Counter tactics, it's not really something I do. I just I try to keep it as simple as possible for my clients. And, you know, we put our best foot forward and just trying to do what we can.
Do you try to make offers that don't have a contingency on selling their own house, their old house? I mean, do you just kind of skip that?
If you can avoid having a house that has or an offer that has a contingency to sell a house, that is definitely very good, because if you do, then your offer is less appealing as comparable to a house that, you know, doesn't have a contingency to sell a house. So that's one of the reasons why with those two offers that we received for our listing, was one offer had to continue to sell their house, but they hadn't put it on the market yet. And I don't think even if it did, my clients would want to feel more comfortable knowing that the house was pending or at least in the process of being closed for them to even consider it, compared to the other offer, which even though it was VA, they preferred that one because there was no contingency to sell a house and they were willing to deal with the extra, you know, process that it took for to make the VA loan move forward.
I think what I'm asking, if a person has a house to sell, do you skip that and just go ahead and put an offer in and then just wing it to sell their house quick?
It would depend on the situation. I would say if you know that it's going to sell quickly, you know, you can definitely do that, but it all depends on what the timeline is. So, you know, if, for example, if you have in the contract that you're going to close on their new house in 45 to 60 days, then that means the new home has to already be on the market or be immediately ready to go on the market as soon as that offer is accepted or even beforehand. And I've seen that happen. I personally haven't done that. It's kind of a gray area, and that's not something I'd want to do, but I have seen it and it's worked out. So that is something that you can do. Because then that way you're not telling the sellers that you have a contingency to sell a house, but then if complications arise and you have to tell them because it's a contingency to sell the house, then that could be a problem. Okay, let's see. So we're not seeing a whole lot of counter offers right now. If they are, it's usually to kind of clean up a couple of things that were need to be addressed, as far as telling the buyers their escalation clause went up to the full price or whatever price that may be. And so, you know, there's not a whole lot that I can talk about on counter offers, but if it does happen, the ones that I have seen in the past 2-3 years ago was usually the seller was negotiating or doing a counter offer because they didn't want to pay the buyer's closing costs, or they wanted to reduce how much they were paying towards the buyer's closing costs. So that's pretty much it. I mean, if there's anything in particular you guys want to know or ask me questions, I'm happy to stick around for a bit, and then just do what I can to help you guys. I know it's a tough market right now, so I don't have all the answers, but the key thing is doing what you can to help people buy and sell property, and just getting in front of as many property owners as you can, to not have to worry about if a client gets cold feet or if there's appraisal issues, because at the end of the day, the more you do it, the more you'll get comfortable with it, and then you'll get to a point where you can decide if you want to work with that client or not, versus feeling like you need that client. We got a question here. I can definitely do that for you. So I'll share this PowerPoint presentation with you guys if you want it. Any other questions you guys have? Let me see. Okay. Well, what I'll do is I'll give you my cell phone number, and that way you guys, if you have any questions later on, or if you want to give me a call, I'd be happy to chat with you more. My phone number is 541-515-9149. And I'll put in the chat to as well as my email. So just let me know how I can be a resource for you guys. I'd be happy to help any way I can. Honestly, I would say, there's still a lot that I personally need to learn. There's stuff in here that I kind of glossed over because there's not everything in Ignite that I agree with. And so there's stuff that I kind of shared more of my personal opinions and how I do business. But I would say if you guys are wanting to learn from someone who's helped my business and changed my mindset, Ricky Carruth has been a big benefit in my life. So I would recommend listening to him. I think it'll help you guys a ton, a lot more than what I'm able to share currently, since I'm still going through the grind as well. I'm right there with you guys.
I missed the name you just said. Who was it?
Ricky Carruth.
Can you spell that?
RICKY.
Okay.
And then Carruth, CARRUTH. He's an agent out in Alabama. He sells about 100 homes as a single agent. And I mean, it's pretty incredible what he has done. So I would recommend it. There's some things that, maybe, yeah, I'll put it in chat for you. It may not feel like it's true, but once you start to really stick through it, you'll realize how powerful it is. Absolutely.
I just want to share a few things about my business, and I want to talk about closing 40 million a year as a single agent every year.
Sorry about that.
No worries. All right, do you guys have any questions before I jump off? Cool. Well, let me know how I can help you guys in your business or anything I can do for you. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day.
I appreciate your honesty. I feel like you were really honest about being a new agent. Thank you.
Hey, no worries.
That's very helpful at this point. Thank you.
It can be stressful as a new agent, so I hear you. Just keep doing it, and the more that the more time you put into helping people and finding more people that you can help, at the end of the day, you'll see the results show up. Whether it's 6 months, a year, 2 years from now, it'll happen. That's the key thing. Just trust the process.
Thank you very much.
You bet. You guys have a